I'm referring now to Dr. Arzu Rana Deuba. Dr. Arzu Rana Deuba is a member of Parliament of Nepal and was a member of the Constitution Drafting Committee. She also serves as the chair of the Women Parliamentarians Coordination Committee and as a member of the Parliamentary Committee on State Governance. Dr. Deuba is a well-known gender activist and social worker. She has established a number of women and children issues related to NGOs in Nepal, some of which are Sahti in 1992, which works on violence against women, the Safe Motherhood Network Federation in 1996, which worked in the area of reproductive health and rights, and the Rural Women's Development and Unity Center in 1995, which works in areas with the lowest human development indicators. Dr. Rana Deuba established also Samanata, an Institute for Social and Gender Equality, in 1997, which is a research-based organization. Dr. Deuba is also associated with the White Ribbon Alliance for Safe Motherhood. In my own country, Colombia, we have more than 6,000 girls between 10 and 14 who are pregnant every year. Now that I pass the floor to you, I would like to ask you particularly about the necessity of your thoughts and your insights that we'd like to hear. Why mobilizing communities, why mobilizing the people and the women and girls could be really helpful for not just participating, but for make us all more accountable. Thank you, Dr. Rana Deuba.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, panelists, for the excellent presentations that went before mine. My journey was a very personal one. I never started thinking I would ever work in health. I thought childbirth, I just go into a hospital, out comes the baby, and I come home. Well, to my horror and consternation, I almost died in childbirth, and that really changed my life. As I lay on the bed, I was thinking, I might live today, but how many have died? And that is how my journey in this area started. And that is why I think, we can make policies, we can have programs, we can have budgets, but unless there's something that moves inside you, things will not change that easily. And for me, it was a very homegrown process. I never thought about social mobilization. My discipline was totally different. I'm a psychologist by training. I worked in organizational behavior and academics. I had nothing to do with grassroots work. But with my own life moving experience, as I learned more and more about what is happening in my country, I learned that women are dying nearly every minute. One woman every 2 minutes when we started out. And it was really a human rights crisis. But it was a very quiet one, because they were mostly all dying in the villages. And all the activists were like me. They were all from Kathmandu, educated, knew all about the world, but didn't know about rural areas. So the journey that started, I got a lot of guidance from OBGYNs, from people who really knew what was happening. And that is, what I think, that's how I became an activist. I was not planning to be one. But when something happens to you, then you have this urge to speak out and to be heard and try to make a difference. And I was very lucky that I met a lot of people who had seen what happens to women in Nepal, who joined our group. And that's how we started mobilizing the society. When we started out, we came to know that Nepal had made a commitment way back in 1987, and my child was born in 1995. But there was no move to do anything, because it was not a priority for our government. And it was not a priority for the women activists. We were working on other issues. So how did we go about it, So what we did was to create a group of people who were really, who knew the issue. And that's how we also worked on safe abortion. Because, we started work in 95, 2000, the gag rule came. And then, we were supported by USAID till then. And then USAID asked us, what do you want to do? So I asked the doctors, what do you suggest? So they said, between 15 to 25% of women die in Nepal because of unsafe abortion. So we said we did not get formed because USAID was going to support us. We formed because there's a cause. We want to save lives of women in Nepal. So that's how our journey started, and it was a tough one because it was, that time not many people really talked about this issue yet. We talked about family planning, and of course we heard about gag rule, but there were not many people really looking at safe motherhood. But we pushed and we created a consensus. We did rallies, we did events, we got women to march. We had people coming out in droves, and the government said maybe we should do something then. And that's how the first policy and guidelines was made. And what do you know? Once the government prioritized it, DFID said, okay, we'll give you money to work on this area. And that's when we learned that if governments prioritize issues, there is something, there will be somebody who will help you. And that is how the first COEC centers, the BEOC centers, all started in Nepal. And that's how we started. I experimented with a low-risk birthing center because I was very naive and I didn't even realize you needed a referral center in case something goes wrong in a very remote area. But we were successful. As serendipity would have it, the first child, there were twins who were born in our center and they survived. So the people there thought it was a miracle because they had never seen twins survive in that community. So that's how our journey started. And then the theory behind what we were doing, I learned later, that we must have people passionate about this issue. We must have people from all walks of life come into it. We started working with parliamentarians. Before every election, we would say, this is the issue. How many women are dying in your ward? How many women have died from the homes of the people you are supported? So these are the kind of things that we form. And what now I know is that the agenda that the Human Rights Council has picked up is an excellent one because this affects more than half the population of the world, because most women want to be mothers, and for some of us it's not very safe. So what would be my recommendations for mobilization? One is to cast your circle very wide, get all types of people involved, make the people who are doing the advocacy feel they're playing a part, that they can make the change. Have dialogues from the grassroots up to the highest level. We even talked to our Prime Minister at that time. And now, come to a point where countries also legislate, and they legislate where not only policies are made, but also money is put in. Now we are bringing out a legislation in Nepal which says that the Nepalese government also has to set aside money for safe motherhood in its national budget. For us, that's a huge change, because till now we've got donor support, but in this world, who knows who's going to get what later on. So we want to ensure that our journey that started from doing education, awareness raising, ends up with a legislation, and also the whole issue of accountability. That also revolves around mobilization. Unless you mobilize people right from the grassroots up to the level of the ministers, how do you know your policies are working? You will not know whether your budgets are really reaching the people, whether there's respect when a woman is getting treated. So all these are issues where I think mobilization plays a centerpiece, and my recommendation would be that when you make your programs and policies and budgets, please put in something for mobilization of the people who are really affected by the issue. Thank you.
Many, many thanks. I think I'm very pleased because actually, as you can see, our panelists are really oriented to concrete recommendations and to the objectives of this panel.